need to do that. So I'm going to talk about distressed properties today. I have always done niches. I mean, you guys have probably heard me say this before. I've always focused in and found these cool little things that have worked really well for me over the years. When I first got in the market, Steve told me, go do loans first. So I'd learned loans. But then when I got into the real estate side, the market was starting to shift. 05, 06, and then ultimately 07 happened. But I learned about BPOs. I learned about REOs. I learned about short sales. And so in that timeline, I focused my attention on that. I did over 100 short sales. I sold over 250 properties for bank repos. And then in 2012 and 13, I helped Invitation Homes buy up all those properties that were in default or have been foreclosed on. And so I've always had these little niches. I've done lease options. I've done some other stuff as well. And so today we're going to talk about one of my specific niches that I always do really well with. And that is actually those defaulted people. And there are always some people that have these issues. Some people are going to lose jobs. Some people are going to go through a divorce. Some people are going to have other things that happen in life, life experiences, life changes, and they just have to make a decision to do something. And so we're going to find out different ways that we can share with them, offer them some advice, be that answer for them, and hopefully lead them in the right direction. And even if we don't get the opportunity to serve them now for their real estate needs, and maybe we can help them with a modification or a forbearance agreement, when the time comes that they do need to sell, they're going to realize that we gave them an opportunity and we helped them when others were not. So they're going to then refer us out. They're going to then come back to us when it's time. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go over a couple of different things. And of course, you guys know me, ask questions as we're going through the process. So here is my little distressed homeowners, including short sales, foreclosures, divorce situations, NOD, notice of default. And I'm a huge fan of always coming from contribution. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. There are lots of places for us as agents to go out and do research for anything that's distressed. So HUD.com, NACA, and I'm going to go over these individually as we go through this process. But we're going to talk about short sales. We're going to talk about notice of default. We're going to talk about some of the sites that are utilized for you to go ahead and be able to do the research on those. And then I'm going to give you my personal story about my buddy Kyle. So first and foremost, one of the things that we as agents need to realize is that we have this amazing thing called the MLS. You guys all know about. I would recommend that you have certain searches saved for all times, because through our process of being real estate agents, you'll see all my saves right here. I have all these saves from people that I'm either selling properties for, I've run comps for, I've done BPOs for. Some reason, some way, I have these people's information saved over here. And then I have my wonderful fixers. I've got Elk Groves, certain specific buyers. But here's the ones I want to touch base with you guys on. So this is HUD Homes. A HUD home is an FHA mortgage that has gone into default and has been foreclosed on. Okay. So HUD is only for FHA. Every once in a while, you'll find a VA in there based on who the servicer was or if there's some kind of thing in the background. But HUD is usually FHA loans. People bought them, 3.5% down. Sometimes what you'll find in FHA loans is also a reverse mortgage. A reverse mortgage is also FHA backed. So we're going to save a HUD home search. And then you'll see in here that I have, where's it at? I have notice of default. And then I have short sales. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through these each one at a time. And I'm just going to show you how to save these. So HUD homes. Now here's the thing. You see all of these say HUD owned. So you know that under special listing conditions, these are all HUD owned. Here's the thing. HUD only hires about 6 to 8 agents in each area, and they sometimes overlap. So someone that is in El Dorado County might get a Sacramento property from time to time. Someone that's got Placer County might possibly get a Sacramento. They might overlap like that slightly, but we'll go ahead and look and I'll show you guys a couple of things I want to look at here. So Serena Loudon, she is in fact a HUD specialist. You'll see her name. She's been in the business for 30 years. And you'll also go down into confidential remarks and it will say HUD home, FHA case number. If it does not have this information in the confidential agent remarks, that means that that agent probably put the wrong information in, or they clicked a tab that put it as a HUD home when it's probably not. So Serena is a HUD specialist. This should be John Brophy. It is. He's a HUD specialist. You'll see it HUD home. They always have the FHA case number. And sometimes they'll have this right here, which is Olympus AMS. That is it's a management company that manages these for FHA. So Pinefield, we'll see. We got John Brophy again. We got Lincoln is Paul Boudier. And you'll see HUDHomestore.gov. That's another place that you guys are going to find these properties. See who else is here. See if we got anybody that's wants to be and they're not. Happened here. Okay, Christine LeBrock and her daughter Rachel. They are mostly El Dorado County. Like I said, every once in a while you'll find them down here in Sac, but anything that's in El Dorado County, it's almost always Christine and her daughter. And then we got John Brophy again. So John looks like he's got the majority of everything up here in Sacramento. Serena's got one, or I'm sorry, John has Placer County. He also has this one right here in Sac, but like I said, that kind of overlaps. This is Sacramento also, that's John again, and then this one in Lincoln was Paul Boudier. So those are names that are absolutely HUD certified specific people, so they are always going to be there. When I do my searches, I'm going to show you guys just a standard search. You go ahead and you're always going to check on your actives. Special listing conditions. This is how you decide what your special listing conditions is. And you'll see right here, it is HUD owned. Right? HUD owned. That is the box that I check when I am specifically looking for HUD owned properties. And the reason I keep this as a saved search is because this helps me keep my finger on the pulse of the market. So when I go and look and go, hey, there's 6 active FHA properties, and I can kind of track that, and I look at it once a month or so. Sometimes there'll be 1 or 2, and I'm like, okay, a lot of them have sold. That means they were pricing them properly, and they're not a lot going on. You'll see some of these right here, 77 days on the market, 70, 53, 131 days on the market. That means that they are still holding out, that they are going to get top dollar. It also could mean that their agent isn't really giving them the best data. And so that's what I look for. You could, of course, always add in the pendings and the contingents and all the other things that go along with these to see what the full market is doing. So only 22 homes. So that means we got 6 active. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are pending. And that means we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that have sold in the last 6 months. So not a whole bunch of properties, FHA, but this is a good indicator of what's happening in the market. And as the rates continue to stay high and people are starting to have issues, they're worried, people are losing jobs, unemployment's going up, the cost of just plain groceries is going up. Some of these people pushed themselves and extended themselves probably further than they should have, whether that was, based on what their lender told them, their agent told them, or they were just desiring to get into the market and be a homeowner. They push themselves too far and things happen. People get sick, people lose jobs, they get divorces, things happen, and people make financial decisions to just, I'm going to back off. I'm going to just stop making my payment. I'm going to let this go back to the bank. So that's what HUD is. And then we've got our short sales. And these are all things that I track because I want to know what's going on in the marketplace. So short sell. They bought their house for $400,000. The value went up. They refinanced. They took all their cash out. Now they're maxed out at $500,000. And maybe the house was worth $6, but now it's dropped down and it's worth $500 or less. So a short sale means that they are selling this property for less than they are encumbered for. So whether they have a first and they got a solar lien, they got an equity line, they had down payment assistance, whatever it is, they now owe X dollars and their house is minus or less than that. So they're doing a short sale. In a short sale, it is a very long and tedious process. So just making sure you guys are all aware of that. You'll see some of these say notice of default in foreclosure. We're going to get into that in a second. But sometimes short sales and notice of default will actually overlap. Short sale means that you're, like I said, you owe more than what the property is actually worth. Notice of default means I'm not making my payments. And now, as I don't make my payments, they stack that on top of the total debt. So the debt actually climbs, just to make sure we kind of understand the difference there. So short sales is another way that I start to verify what is happening in our marketplace. 2020, 2021 into April, May-ish of 2022, the market was going at 18% a year. Everything was fantastic. We didn't have short sales. We didn't have notice of default because people are like, oh, I've got 100 grand in equity. Oh, we just bought 3 new cars and a boat, and we've got 100,000 in credit card debt. We'll just refinance our house and we'll pay off all that stuff, which makes all of our debt in one place, and rates were 2 and 3%. So it was fantastic. And it helped them to afford all those things or to leverage themselves. But what it unfortunately did is didn't teach a lot of those people how to manage their money. And so now they're in this position where, hey, my house is at, I've leveraged 600,000 and the house is only worth 5. So what do I do? And I've already, accumulated another $40,000 in debt. We went and bought another car, and now we can't make everything work. So we're, going to this example. Now, we as agents have the ability to do short sales, notice of default. If you get signed up with the right companies, you can sell those HUD homes. You can sell Fannie Mae homes. That's a different class, but I want to kind of this really is more or less for us as agents to be able to understand what's going on in the marketplace and to have a very good snapshot of what's going on. It's also a great opportunity for us to have a talk with our database. When you start to talk to people in your database and they say, I'm waiting for the market to crash, you'll be able to say, you know what? I'm actually keeping my finger on the pulse of the market. And right now, there's actually only 29 short sales in Sac, Placer, El Dorado, Sutter, Yolo, and Nevada County. So 6 counties, there's only 29 short sales that are active. So that goes to show you that there's not a lot of people that are in that dire consequence right now. Also, for the HUD properties, those are the people that bought FHA. There's only 6 HUD bank repos on the market right now. So what that leads me to believe as a professional is that we're actually not at that tipping point yet, but I'm keeping my finger on the pulse, and I will stay in touch with you. And as this shifts and changes, I'll be more than happy to share this information with you. So that's a great talking point for you. For those of you guys that are working with investors, of course, are going to say, well, I'm looking for short sales. I want the best deal. I want to find properties under foreclosure. These may be an opportunity for you guys to make some kind of lowball offers for those investors and secure your relationship with that investor that you know enough about the market to make these kind of offers. Now, with short sales, just to make sure you guys understand, short sell means the bank is getting shorted. It doesn't mean short as in timeline. Short sales can take up to 9 months. And I have seen much, much longer. I've processed 2 short sales that were considerably over 18 months. And then I've had some companies that get them done in 60 days. So I tell anybody, if you're making an offer on a short sale, be prepared. This is probably a 6-month process as an average. And right now, there's not a million of them. So the banks have some people in their notice of default or risk management areas that are processing these. So they're probably getting done a little bit faster. Also, for you guys as agents, I would not recommend you try and process the short sell on your own. If you really, really want to sit behind a desk all day long and call the bank 15 times a day, you can do that, but then you're not out selling other homes. I would recommend that you find a short sale specialist. There are probably 6 or 8 in the area that I know of. A lot of them are transaction coordinators, and they're sitting at a desk all the time anyway, so they'll do the process for you. And then there's a cost associated with that. I've heard, $1,000. I've heard 1% of my sales price or 1% of your commission. So if you're getting 2.5, you might be giving up 1%, but you don't have to worry about anything. You get your 1.5. They get it for sitting there and talking to the bank and calling and talking and doing all the things. And they're doing that on a consistent basis. If you guys want names and numbers, let me know. I'll get you guys that information. Any questions so far? Yes, Marion.
Would this apply also to residential income properties like your duplexes?
Occasionally you'll find one that will fall in this category, but not very often. You got to realize that most investors that are purchasing properties that are investment are probably 20% down, 1031 exchange. They're a little bit more savvy, and they've also got tenants that are picking up, 2, 3, or 4 rents, depending on duplex up to fourplex. So they've got multiple streams of income that are helping to cover that mortgage. So very rarely does this happen. I mean, don't get me wrong, it does happen. And usually it's if Joe Buyer says, hey, I can't afford to buy a single family home, so I'm gonna buy a duplex. I'm gonna live in one side in my 2-bedroom, 1-bath with my family, or 3-bedroom, 2-bath, because they obviously have that size. And I'm going to use the other side to help pay the rent or the mortgage, or that rent is going to help pay the mortgage. So that usually brings down the cost of that home buyer's side. But there are not many of those, but you will find them occasionally. And like I said, as these continue to go up, as we get more short sales, more notice of default, more HUD homes, you will in fact find that there will be more and more of those, but it's still going to be, 1% of the total.
And when does it tip for you when you start going, oh, we're starting to see a change? What would that look like?
I'm always watching it, and I've seen just ebbs and flows right now. I mean, I'm probably going to start to watch for like breakpoints. So for me, short sellers are at 29. When we get to 50, I'm going to think, okay, that's a pretty big point. When we get to 100, I'm probably going to be like, okay, do I want to focus my attention back on short sales because I'm starting to see that there's a pretty big influx. So very good questions. And it's not like I watch and think it's 1% of the market or 2% of the market. I'm just watching this as a whole because my goal always is to be the educator for my database. Today I called my database, I called my A's, and I just got into my B's today. And I was talking to a client and I said, hey, here's what's going on in the marketplace. I don't know if you know about this, but he's like, oh, Gary, I've been watching your stuff about assumables. I need a 5-bedroom. And I was like, well, I've got a 5-bedroom, 3-bath with a 2.99. So because I'm following the market and I'm putting information out on a consistent basis, they always look at me as the professional. And so as I reach out, the questions come back. So I will probably start to do some posting about short sales and notice of default and foreclosures in my social media, probably in the next month or so. And as I start to do that, my questions will start to come in about these, and then I'll be able to really focus and fine tune how I don't want to say promoting these, covering what the market's doing. Any other questions, Marion?
Would these roll, as we're doing an open active search and we haven't selected anything for special conditions, these could potentially roll up. So this is something to be looking at before we show a home. Is
Yeah.
that
So
correct?
if
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
searching Orangevale under 500, this Orangevale house on Pershing is going to show up. And you go, okay, well, it's 400,000 or 489, whatever this house is. I think I've called this, talk to this agent. Yeah, she's at 489. And I'd be like, oh, my clients are looking for Orangevale. They want to be in, Trajan School District. They want to be right off of Madison or Greenback, close to Folsom, and they want a 3.2. So this meets their criteria. I tell them is the reason that this property is priced where it is because I talked to the agent. This is a divorce situation. It's going to take 6 months for us to be able to close on this. And for some people, that'll be like, that's fine. It's the best deal I'm totally willing to wait 6 months to get that property because everything else in Orangeville is 525 and higher. So when I talk about these properties, I tell people, hey, let's make a lowball offer. There's no other offers. I've had the conversation with this agent, no other showings, no other real interest. Let's make a 450 offer. Let's see what happens. So that allows me to then secure that relationship with that client. Like nobody else was willing to write that 450 offer for me. So why not allow me to do that? Okay. All right. So the other search I have saved is my notice of default, NOD. And so NOD, there's 24. And like I said, you'll notice some of these are short sales, a decent amount of them. And then there's others like, where is it? I saw one. There was one I called on. I think it's this one in Hayden Way, Fair Oaks. I called and talked to this agent and they're in default. The house is worth like, they have loans like 350 or 370, but they got it listed for 600. So there's an equity position in this house still. And they're not at a short sale, but they are behind on their mortgage. So like I said, it could be a death in the family. You'll find probates have notice of default, divorces have notice of default. There's all these things that may lead up to, and sometimes multiple things that lead up to this is what's going on in the marketplace, or this is what's happening with this specific property. Okay. So my distressed homeowners, I just want to cover all this with you guys. There are lots of ways for you guys to find this information. And if you want to focus, and like I said, I'm a big niche person. I like to go and find the properties that are for sale before, or I'm sorry, the properties that are in distress before they get to the MLS. Because this MLS search says that there's 24 properties that are thinking about selling, that are in process, have some situation that have already reached out to the agent. What if I could go and find you the notice of default list within Property Radar is one, Deal Machine is one, RedX, Land Voice. These are all searches. They're all a cost, $75 to about $150 a month, but they will give you the list of people that are in default 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, 150, 180, and further that are in default. And those people might be like a lot of people. Like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm already dealing with the loss of my spouse. I'm going through a divorce. I lost my job. I'm depressed. I'm just going to stick my head in the sand and not worry about my house. This is a great opportunity for us to reach out and say, listen, I know you guys are struggling right now. I know there's lots of stuff going on in your life, and I don't know what the specific situation is, but is there a way I can be of service to you? And there are ways for us to be able to help them. So HUD.com is a national source. There is FHA. You could look up those sources, and they have services that are provided to people that have FHA, VA, and conventional loans. So any loan will qualify, but sometimes people don't know what to do. They're at the point where I'm just, and I'm going to use my example back from 2008. I was in real estate. I had great income. 2008 happened. I had no income. So I actually tried to short sell my house, tried everything, forbearance agreement, loan modification agreement, tried all the things. But even I didn't know about HUD. I just called the bank like, hey, Bank of America was my bank, my mortgage holder. What do I do? How can I do this? And I didn't know that there was additional assistance out there. Not until really about 2008, 9, when I realized like, hey, let's look for this sources. So HUD.com and NACA.com. What NACA is a nonprofit organization, Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. I've dealt with them for many years, back since 2008. They will bring on a counselor to help that person. They'll walk them through every single scenario. They will actually reach out on their behalf to their servicer. HUD will do the same thing. They'll reach out to the servicer on behalf. They set up counseling appointments. They find out from them, hey, do you need to find work? Here's some places for you to go find work. You're going through a divorce, like, hey, here's all the things. They actually build a plan for them. most people just don't know where to go to find the assistance. And so now this is our opportunity to lead with the giving hand and say, listen, I'm not just a regular real estate agent coming here to be like, oh, you're in default and you're going to lose your house and that sucks. Let me sell it for you. It's like, nope, let me see what I can do to walk alongside you and provide level of service to you first and foremost. And if it's, if it comes down to it where you can't get any kind of assistance, you're not getting a job, you're sick, whatever it is that you cannot get to that point, at least we've exhausted all the possibilities. And I've come to you from, like I said, a service minded servant's heart first and foremost. Now I can come back and be like, we've tried everything. The only thing left to do is to sell your house. I happen to be a real estate professional. I can now help you with that piece as well. But you've really gone through and done everything you can do for them first. So HUD and NACA are ways for you to reach out and find them services. When I'm talking to people, I'll say, hey, listen, can I actually reach out to HUD right now? There is a local HUD counseling service center. It is on Alhambra. And you can look it up if you just look up HUD.com, like it's right here. It'll give you like where the services are in the area. NACA's got a office off of Bradshaw, but they're based out of like Virginia or somewhere on the East Coast. But if you can come, like I said, lead with the giving hand. Can I get you on a third party call? Can I call NACA right now for you? Can I get you on the phone with HUD and reach out and see if I can get you in touch with a service provider that can maybe help you guys out? You're then using third party instead of saying, let me help you, because then you're just saying, hey, I'm going to put you in touch with the people you need to be in touch with. And then all you do is come back once a week and check in with your clients and say, hey, how is that going for you? Oh, I haven't been able to do anything. And you'll find that there are people that, like I said, head in the sand. They don't want to deal with it. They don't know how to deal with it. Sometimes you got to hold their hand a little bit. Sometimes you'll find that they are just never going to do anything. And you got to just continue to stay in touch with them once a week, once a month, whatever, until that time comes where they're like, I realize I have nothing else left. I have to do something. And you're the one that stayed in touch with them. So that's what happens. Property Radar, Deal Machine, RedX, and Land Voice, those are all places for you to find those notice of defaults before they hit the market. Okay. Any questions? No? Marion, good? Okay. I'm going to give you my personal success story. So Kyle is a client of mine. He was actually referred to me through one of my lenders that I've known for 15 years. And she said, Gary, I can't help this guy. He wants to do a refinance. He's a prison guard and he got hurt, blew out his knee in a fight and altercation at Folsom Prison. And he's been out of work for like 12 months, 16 months, whatever it was. They have owned their house for 20 years. They are behind by like $35,000. This was in, I think, October of 24. Took me a couple weeks to finally get in touch with him. He's like, yeah, we're going to do something. I'm not sure. Back and forth, back and forth. I stayed in touch with him once a week, once a week. Hey, Kyle, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? I think it was right before Thanksgiving. He finally reached out and said, Gary, I got my notice of trustee sale. My house is going to sale on December 20th. And I'm going to lose my house I've owned for 20 years. They've got probably 80 to 100,000 in equity. So I'm like, okay, let's figure this out. So I put him in front of HUD. I put him in front of NACA. I did three-way calls. I got him engaged. They were able to save his house. He was able to actually have Christmas in his home. He is now back to work. They did a refinance for him or a forbearance agreement, kind of modified his loan. The payment did go up. He had like a 3.25%, 3.5% rate. I want to say it's like 5 or 5.5 now because they had to make that adjustment. But they also pulled a big chunk of his mortgage that was late and behind to the back of his loan. So yeah, his payment went up by $600 or $800, but he's back to work now. He's been back to work since February or March of this year. They're getting their credit rebuilt. And then in probably 3 to 6 months, I'm going to help them to sell this house. And then they're going to move somewhere to get closer to parents and family. But it was somebody that I like literally 90 days follow up once a week. Kyle, what can I do to help you out? will you allow me to do this? Will you let, no, I'm good. We're going to figure it out. No big deal. And then finally he came to his senses, came to like a realization, holy crap, the bank's going to take my house. My kids are going to be on the street. My wife is going to shoot me. What are we going to do? And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, consistently staying in touch with him and never once said to him, hey, we need to sell your house. You need to bail. I said, let me offer you all these other options first. And luckily for us, one of those options worked for him and he was able to save his home and stay in it. But the great thing is, he works at Folsom Prison. There's a lot of guards there. Every day when he's there and somebody talks about real estate, he always says, hey, you got to talk to my real estate agent, Gary Meek. You've got to go talk to my guy. You guys are thinking about buying or thinking about selling, please go talk to my guy. He was able to help my family when nobody else could. So I have someone just singing my praises. They are shouting from the rooftops, super raving fan. I haven't done a deal with him yet, but at some point, I'm going to be able to help him specifically sell his current home. Like I said, we're working on getting their credit all kind of patched back up. So then they'll sell that one and then they'll use it equity position to buy their new house. And they'll be closer to family, but he's given me a couple referrals already. And those are kind of in the works right now. So like I said, a long time for me to build relationship with this one person, but we're going to start to see a little bit more of that as the market shifts, as the rates remain high. We're going to start to see more of this. And if you guys haven't seen it, the values are starting to come down in certain areas. It's kind of crazy to me. I have a client who's looking in Rancho at 450. And I was like, oh, that should be no problem. I saw a bunch because I had another client looking in Citrus Heights and I was like, oh, there's tons of stuff. 425, 435 Citrus Heights. I've seen that drop because those used to be 475 to 500. And now we've seen this 10% reduction kind of cleaning out. I figure Rancho was going to have the same thing. Well, when I went down to Rancho and Rosemont because they want to be along 50, I didn't see the same thing. It was interesting to me that Rancho has maintained its value, but it was just a way for me to realize I got to look at where the market is going. And this is just one way for us to utilize this information for us to really get to know our marketplace really, really well. All right, that's all I got for today. Miriam.
Just a one-on-one, just a 101 on what it would look like a buyer who's in distress, like some of the things they say, and what is the paperwork? So I've never lost a home, so I don't even know what
Yep.
that
Seller
looks
in
like.
distress.
Yeah.
They are probably not going to come out and tell you about it. It's
No.
crazy. People are, and I don't know what it is. I think, and just to go back and use my personal experiences from 07, 08 through 12, really, we dealt with so many people that were like, I've owned my home for 5 years. I had to go knock on someone's door. They had owned their home for 30 years. They had just refinanced and taken out money and bought toys and done whatever. And when I knocked on their door, I knocked and the gentleman was like, I never told my wife. And I was like, well, I work for Bank of America and I'm here to kick you guys out of your house. I mean, ultimately, I don't quite put it that way. So people will be in all different levels of distress. Like I said, some are ostrich, put their hand in the sand. I've had other people just walk away, leave the house, make it perfect. I've had people steam clean the carpets and then walk away. I've had other people just, stay there as long as they can, leave their animals there. I mean, it's unfortunate. There's all these different levels. And so I believe in this situation as we go into a little bit of this market. Like I said, I don't see anything. I don't see a major change coming that's going to drop us off a cliff where we're going to hit what we did in 07, 08. Um, but there will always be those people, and it's always education. How can you lead with the giving hand? How can you offer solutions to them? And it will be as, do I want to market to this group of people? Because they are difficult to deal with from time to time. Like I said, I just mentioned Kyle, which we've got a great relationship now, but for 90 days, I mean, I talked to him and got his understanding of what he was at. And I said, here, let me help you. Nope, nope, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. And then I have no other choice. I mean, it just, for whatever reason, it just finally dawned on him. I can't do this on my own. I've got to get help.
So
So,
I mean,
yep.
they might by some off chance mention they had a partial payment or two. or they've missed a payment.
Yep.
And then it builds and builds, and then eventually they get like a notice of default, or they first start seeing the debt pile up. I'm trying to remember. I walked along someone who'd had this pile of debt. Then she got notice after notice.
So usually what you'll find is most people let their credit cards go first. They'll actually let their utilities go first, then they'll let their credit cards go, then they'll let their cars or automobiles go, and then they let the house go. Because usually, those are the smaller payments. Like, hey, we're just a little short this month. We won't make the Target credit card payment for $100. And then it's like, hey, now we're at $500. Well, now we can't pay the Target, the Chase card, and the water bill. And then it's like, oh crap, we're $800 short. Now we can't make those payments and we can't pay the car payment either. I mean, it's just as things pile up, like I said, whether it's loss of job or, I used to depend on, 12 hours of overtime every week, and now I'm not getting that, which I'm losing $800 a month. Like that's a big loss to people. So, I mean, there are some people that just say, you know what? The first time of any stress, they just go, nope, I'm not making the house payment because they've heard the stories. I have somebody I just talked to, I think it was Sunday. He was like, I stayed in my house for almost 2 years without making a payment. And I just stockpiled my money so that when they came and took my house, I had 50 grand in the bank. So, like I said, everybody's different. And our goal is to just get out in front of those people and say, if you're having this situation, we have several ways that we can help you. Yep. So there's lots of different ways to find those phone numbers. You can send letters, you can knock on those doors. There's all different ways to reach out to those people. And I mean, social media is another way to do it. You can find people on social media. Hey, Joe lives in Citrus Heights and I see his house is in foreclosure. I found it's Joe Smith, and I can find Joe Smith in real estate, on social media that lives in Citrus Heights. And it looks like he's roughly this person. You can message them on socials. Um, I'm much more of a direct person. I use a couple systems. I use Fast People Search and Exact Dial. I can find their phone numbers and email addresses for $15 a month. Exact Dial is $5.99 or $4.99 a month for like 20 searches. So when I'm really heavy into my searches, it costs me a little bit more. And then Fast People Search is free. There's a free version and then there's an upgraded version. Same thing with US Search. There is a free version and there's an upgraded search, but it gives you names, emails, phone numbers, addresses, and it will give you family members. It'll say, hey, Joe is probably related to Barbara and Mary and Stephen and blah, blah, blah. And it'll give you a list of people they could be related to. And then you can go in and look at those people's searches and you can cross-reference. Did they ever live in Citrus Heights at that address? Oh, yeah, that's probably someone that's related to him or her. So lots of ways to do this research. And honestly, there's great opportunity within these because there are people that sometimes will say, I don't know what else to do. My house is upside down. Hey, I just want to sell it short. I just tell them, listen, I can be of service to you. I'm going to do everything I can to show you what I've done. I've done 100 of these in the past. I can get you $5,000 in moving expenses and probably 6 months in your house for free. When I offer that as hey, you're not gonna have to make your payments while we're doing the short sale process, and I'm gonna do everything I can to get you 5 grand for moving expenses because that's kind of what we ask for on most of them. That's what I offer. And a lot of people are like, man, I'm gonna get 5 grand. I'm not gonna make payments for 6 months. I'm like, I'm gonna do everything I can to get you the level of service. Now, keep in mind, your credit's gonna be shot during this process. But if you do it this way and do it as a short sell rather than just letting it go to foreclosure, I could help you to buy a house in 2 years versus a foreclosure, it's 4 to 5 years. So there's ways that I can, position this as what looks, what the future looks like for them. So. What else you got, Miss Marion?
I think that is the bulk of it. So you're really, in just summary, we're helping them, we're providing
Yep.
them some support. And then when if that support doesn't work for them, we're there to hopefully catch it before the bank's doing it, so we can
Yep.
sell it as a short sale.
Yeah. And
But
sometimes, like I said, sometimes people have equity. Like Kyle, when if we would have got to the position where we had to sell his house right then and there, he still would have walked with $50,000.
Mhm.
I mean, there was still equity position in his house. And I mean, if it got repoed by the bank would have knocked on the door. Hey, your house was repossessed. And maybe an investor bought it at the courthouse steps. Hey, I bought your house at court steps. Sign this piece of paper. I'm gonna give you 2 weeks to get out. The bank does it. They go, hey, we'll give you 5 grand. You got 2 weeks to get out. Um, so there's lots of different scenarios. And so just so you're aware, Steve and myself both did bank repos from 2007 to 2012. Probably between the two of us, 700 sales, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase. Marguerite was Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So you have a lot of people within the office that have this experience. So we'll all be able to offer, different pieces of advice and, personal experience for you.
Thank you.
Of course. So I got Steve teaching on open houses next Tuesday. All right. So if you got any other questions or there is no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up today. And I will get this out up on YouTube. So anybody that missed it can check it out. Thank you for being here, Marion.
It'd be hard to do that to nobody, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I'm always happy to stand in.
Appreciate you.
Thank you so
All right.
much. Yeah.
Have a great day.
Yeah, Gary, the one thing that would be helpful for those of us that haven't lived through this, I really don't know what the process would be. Like they're told by their mortgage company they're late, you're late, you're late. Then when does the notice of default kick? What are the notices they get?
Okay. Good. That's a great question. So 30 days, you get a message, phone call, and you'll price something in the mail. 30-day late. 60-day late, same thing. Going to get a couple calls, you're going to get some stuff in the mail. 90 days late, that is called pre-foreclosure. When you hit day 91, that is the official notice of default. The standard for California is from 91 to 180 days. That is the actual foreclosure process. So what day 1 to day 90 is the pre-foreclosure process, usually not out in tax records and public information. But as soon as they hit day 91, that is the actual foreclosure process. That is public information. It is on every website. We can find it on MLS. It's on Zillow. It's everywhere. Okay.
Ew.
Yes. So from day 91 to day 180, that is the actual foreclosure process. And then at day 180, the bank has to post what's called a notice of trustee sale. They have to send a registered letter and it has to be taped to the front of the property. So they tape it on the front door, they tape it on the garage door. It has to be taped to the front of the property, also has to be sent certified mail. From the day of that, so 181, you have 21 days, and that's the shortest time that that bank can put your house up for auction at the courthouse steps. So we're looking at 201, 202 days. Now, keep in mind, the bank, the owner of the property or the owner of the loan hires a servicing company. Servicing company could be Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Planet Home Lending, Mr. Cooper. When you get into default, a lot of times they change the servicing or sell the servicing to a company that specifically focuses on those defaults. And so you'll find that the servicers change, and those servicers, as they're collecting payment or trying to collect payment, they will be super, super aggressive. But honestly, banks in California, right now, we're kind of low on inventory. They might be a little bit quicker. But like I said, I've heard of people staying in their house I've actually heard of a couple people staying in their house 3 years without making a payment before the bank pushed through the full foreclosure process to sell it at the courthouse steps. So like I said, the shortest distance is that 91 to go public information, 180 for the trustee sale, and then 21 days. So it puts us at about 201 days is the fastest it can happen.
Cool. Because that may be something a client asks us as I'm in the spot. How long do I have to figure it out?
Yeah, that's the fastest. They can do it. And like I said, I tell people like, hey, I've seen averages 6, 12, 18 months. I don't, and there's no one servicer that is always super easy to deal with and one that's super strict and follows the guidelines. It has to do with really the workload, probably more than anything else. So when they've only got 4 people that work in a department and there's, 40 of these loans, probably not a big deal. But when you've got 4 people working on 400 loans, then it's probably going to be, things are going to slip through the cracks until they start to beef up their staff, which will happen at some point in time.
Well, I hope we don't see it soon because I hate to see people go through pain.
Yeah, I know. And it's unfortunately, it's one of the ebbs and flows of the market. It helps to reset the market to some degree. And like I said, with the rates being where they are at and the fact that the prices are kind of settling in, I don't see that you're going to have a whole bunch of this because keep in mind, we have people that gained 40% in equity position and have 2 and 3% interest rates. Those people are probably locked in pretty well and pretty insulated. But you have the people that are like, I overspent and I really bought, I bought a house in Granite Bay at $1 million where I'm used to living in Citrus Heights for 500. Like, oh, the rates are 2%, my payment's 4,200. Yeah, we could price stretch that. We want to live in Granite Bay. And I'm not trying to pick on anybody specifically, but you have people that did that. And those are the people that, like I said, unfortunately have circumstances that they did on their own. But then you're always going to have a divorce situation, a spouse that passes away, a child that gets sick. Those are circumstances that people are like, the market shifted, we've got a great rate, but we're upside down, or we have all these medical bills that we've got to pay, and now we're just in this position where we just emotionally, don't know what to do. So that just happens. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's human nature to some degree.
Yep, I call it life happens.
Exactly right. So
All
that's the
right.
scoop.
All right, thank you.
All
Have a
right, have
great
a great
one.
day. Bye-bye.